Well, good evening. We finally made it. And I hope that you're able to receive it. But if not, at least it'll be recorded so you can pick this up later. But we want to move ahead and kind of give you a little bit of an orientation of what we're going to be doing here tonight. This is going to be the entire presentation of session 1 for the Courageous Grandparenting with the PowerPoint slides, the new PowerPoint slides that you should have in your Dropbox account. Anytime there's any new edits to that, I will make sure that those are put in there so that you can get whatever upgrades we do with that. The purpose of this is to give you a better feel for the material, at least how I present it, and hopefully it will help you bring your own personality, your own style to the presentation. Throughout this presentation, you're going to have the opportunity to ask questions via the chat feature on the screen. In fact, we're just going to test it right now to see if anybody's there. And if you're linked up with us, then just simply type in yes or just the letter Y to let us know that you are connected. All right?
I don't think you selected that when we started it.
Can we select it now?
No, it has to be done before.
Okay, so we messed up since we did this last minute rush. We didn't get the Q&A hooked on to this thing. Sorry about that. Tom says we can't do it now. So we will bypass that piece. I guess you won't be able to ask any questions. You can send me an email or give me a phone call, hopefully. So if you happen to have to leave before the presentation is over or you weren't able to be a part of this, obviously we are recording this, so it will be available for you to view. It right now will be available on YouTube, but Tom will be setting up this so that we can get this more easily to you in the future, and we'll get you information on that as we have that ready to go. I want to stress how important it is for you to understand that the first 2 sessions that I'm going to be doing, session 1, session 2, of the Courageous Grandparenting Seminar are very critical and purposeful. As we discuss the problems in our world today and seek to apply what I have called the Issachar factor to addressing them, it is important, I think, that we not overlook the reality that many of our older adults today have a very skewed reality concerning the gospel and what it really means to be a follower of Christ. And so I do not use the term Christian very often in my presentations, not because it isn't a good term, a good word, a legitimate word, but because it is often so inaccurately used and applied to our culture today. Christian can mean almost anything, and I fear that we have grown up in a culture believing that Christians are something other than what they really ought to be, a false pretense. So I will be using more terms like follower of Christ. Session 1 is intended to challenge such thinking, particularly when we get to this section dealing with the cultural hostility. This will mean very little without a foundational understanding of the gospel and the cost of following Jesus. And so this is a part of the presentation you may want to develop a little bit differently than I have. Please feel free to do so as long as you're accurately representing the scripture, the gospel, and what it means to be a follower of Christ. And of course, I would appreciate knowing just what it is that you want to do in that section if you're going to change anything. So let's jump right in. And I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint slides here so that you can kind of see how we jump into this presentation. See if we can get this for you. There we go. Start out, usually as people are coming in, just with the welcome up on the screen so they know that you're going and you're ready to go. You could also have this piece up here that has the Courageous Grandparenting logo and masthead. And then just to remind them that this is all presented to them from the Christian Grandparenting Network Ministry team. So this is your introductory slide that you'll have up on the screen. Session 1, that's the one we're in right now, is entitled Wake Up, We Have a Problem. And so we're going to talk about that. Now, before we get into actually the material, I usually like to do some things where we introduce our family members. So I always put up a slide, at least 1 or 2 slides, and I can put family photos on this page. So this is something you'll want to do as well. This is my newest granddaughter, the youngest granddaughter, I should say. She's just turned a year old, and she's just a doll. And so you would want to put your family photos, tell a little bit about your own story as a grandparent, but it's important to keep it brief because we want to move on to the material. But it's important also that they know a little bit about who you are and where you're coming from in your own story. A little humor doesn't hurt as well. And so I like to put some things up from time to time, things like this. I always say, this is my Uncle Willie. We just celebrated his 80th birthday, and he's always been an outdoors guy. You know, he loves to go four-wheeling and all that, so we got him this new four-wheeler. And something like, yeah, I can't wait till I get one of these too. Use a little humor, build into it, make it something that people will really get involved in. Now, from time to time, you're going to be running across a screen like this that says, let's talk. And in the one of the corners, you're going to find something there's a circle with a and what do you hope to get from this seminar? So then you would hit the 60, and it would start counting down. Tom's going to hit that for me. Hopefully he can make it work. Maybe not. And no, well, we'll just move on. Anyway, if you click that on your computer when you're doing the thing with.
We went out of screen share for some reason.
It went out of screen share?
Here we go.
Okay. So if I go back, you can see that circle. And unfortunately, I don't have a way to click on it right now. But that's what you would do. Okay? So let's move on. I also like to start with just something that leads into kind of where we're going. And I picked this dumb things people do. So I found some pictures of some dumb things people do. I put them up on the screen, make some comments about them. We usually have a good time with these kinds of things. Here's some more dumb things. You don't have to use as many as I do. People always get a kick out of this one, the lady using whiteout on the computer screen and the guy trying to hold a mattress down the back of the truck. All this to lead into what I call one of the dumbest things that we could ever do, and that is this, which is found in the context of Judges chapter 2. To me, this is one of the dumbest things that can happen in any generation, where another generation grew up who knew neither the Lord nor what he had done. Now, remember the context of this. This is Joshua and Caleb and all of those who had come out of the wilderness into the promised land, who had taken and conquered the land, and then their children and their children's children grew up, and this generation grew up who didn't know the Lord or what he had done. Now, we've talked about this before. I can't imagine that they wouldn't have been sitting around the tribal fires telling all the stories of the conquest and the travels in the wilderness, but somehow the stories didn't get told. And I think it's one of the dumbest things. It's not a funny thing. What makes it dumb is obviously somebody dropped the ball, and I believe that there's a sense in which history is repeating itself today, and that's something that we need to be very aware of. Next, we would be moving into just an understanding of the dealing with the problem. This is a picture of the Algo Center Mall in Elliott Lake City, Ontario, where the roof, which was the parking lot of the mall, actually caved in the food court of this mall. And I usually tell the story. This was in 2012 when this roof collapsed. And it was one of those things where 2 people were killed, a lot of people were injured. And what makes it so noteworthy is the circumstances that led up to this collapse. The mall was built in 1980, but by 1990, only 10 years later, it was already plagued with serious leaks and water damage. In fact, one cafe in the mall reported that the leaks were so bad that its customers would occasionally have to stand in line at the checkout counter with umbrellas. And though lots of attempts were made to resolve the leaks and solve the problem, it wasn't really ever addressed. And it wasn't till 2008 that serious repairs were even attempted, but not the full repairs that had been recommended by the contracting engineering firm. So what happened? In order to save costs, this other firm was hired to do much less than was recommended. And some of the business owners complained they didn't want more money spent because that meant their rates were going to go up for their rent, even though water was dripping right up on the heads of people who were their customers. This went on until in 2011, a big piece of concrete fell from the ceiling in the Hungry Jack restaurant in the mall, where no one was injured. inspector was scheduled to come out 2 weeks later, but before that time, the entire roof collapsed, killing 2 people and injuring many others. Now, the problem is that our culture is leaking as well. It's broken. The damage is everywhere, and we seem and often feel helpless to do anything about it. So let's look at this video and see for ourselves what the problem really is we need to address.
You just
You have
click
to
on
click on the screen. Yeah. Whoa.
Is that the video?
No, that's not the video. Okay, let's go on to the next screen. Well, okay. We'll back up. I may have some slides out of order, and I apologize for that. But the issue is that we need to address the problem. And the thing that we're dealing with is not just an issue of things aren't the way we want it to be, but it's that huge chunks of our superstructure, the biblical roots that we've had as a country are crumbling around us. In fact, Tony Evans said, we're not just dealing with lost generations, but the product of lost generations, where too many parents and grandparents are more interested in their kids making the team than gaining the kingdom. The truth is, as a generation, we've really made worldliness more important than godliness. We've done more to give our children reason to think Christianity is not real or even relevant, and to give validity to the power of God through our lives. And I just personally believe it's time to get out of the stands, back into the game, and help rebuild what has crumbled on our watch. Why? Because the hearts, minds, and souls of our grandchildren and their children are at stake. Is it even possible to rebuild? I don't know the answer to that, but I do know with God all things are possible. And there's too much at stake, at least not to try. So I believe it's worth the effort, and I believe the people that are going to be coming to your seminar are there because they think so too, or at least hope so. And I hope you believe it. It's very possible that the tragic commentary of Judges 2 is being repeated, even more with more devastating consequences. So our fight begins with an understanding of something that I've characterized as the Issachar factor. You'll remember the mighty fighting men of David and this particular tribe of Issachar. And that's where this comes from. And the men of Issachar were said to have been men who understood the times and knew what to do. Now, when I was trying to learn how to fish, fly fish in particular, I had a friend of mine who was trying to teach me. I'm not a particularly good fisherman, but he was trying to teach me how to fly fish. And one of the things that he taught me was that you usually want to go to the fly shop before you head up the hills to wherever you're going to fish and find out from them what's biting. Now, what are the fish biting? What are the flies, the bugs, whatever it is? What are they biting? So I wanted to try to apply that fly shop wisdom a little bit to what we're talking about when we're talking about the Issachar factor. We need to know what the fish are biting, or in this case, we need to know what's going on around us. And so what we need to take time to deal with is understanding this principle, the Issachar factor. Issachar factor number 1, understand the times. Part of what we need to understand is that we're living in a very paranoid world that is obsessed with safety. Now, here's an optional story that's in your materials that you can choose to share or not to share. I'm going to just share it with you just a little briefly because I like to do it. And it is, what were my parents thinking? Just a little bit of a picture of what life was like when you and I were kids. They weren't the most safety conscious people in the world. They made me walk to school every day. I had to cross a busy highway twice a day. We didn't lock our front door. We didn't have child caps or on our medicine bottles, and we didn't have safety plugs on the outlets. What was wrong with my parents? When I was 5, they brought me a full-size bike with a training wheel or helmet. At age 6, they bought me a BB gun. At 7, I wandered all over the streets of my neighborhood with friends and no cell phone. I rode in a car with no child seats, hidden seat belts, or airbags. My siblings and I commonly built forts in the back of my family's station wagon as the car was roaring down the highway with our legs hanging out over the back tailgate. We would frequently ride standing on the wood stake bed sides of my father's 1952 International pickup as he drove around town. What was wrong with my parents? Mealtime in my house was a hoot. We made scrambled eggs in my house and about an inch of bacon grease. We put uncooked eggs in our homemade ice cream and milkshakes. On the weekends, my dad and I would eat sardines straight out of the can with a stack of saltine crackers. My favorite food as an 8-year-old was gravy. Besides all that, I ate staggering amounts of Hostess cupcakes, ding-dongs, Suzy Q's, and Twinkies. I consumed Three Musketeers, Milk Duds, Sugar Daddies, and grape knee-high like there was no tomorrow. Don't judge me. I drank water from the garden hose. I explored creek beds and built rafts we floated on the reservoir with no adult supervision. I was left alone with my dog when I was 8 years old. My mom would leave me in the car when she went grocery shopping, and you know what we would do? We would roll down the windows. When my dad brought home a color TV, we really didn't care because it was lots more fun to build dams outside in the local creek, shoot cans with my slingshot, climb 40-foot trees, sled off the roof. That's a story for another time. And sit on the front porch watching lightning storms and funnel clouds. We played kickball, kick the can, and hide and seek every night in the street. And the best hiding place was on my neighbor's roof. We had rotten apple fights with the neighbors. My parents' second home was the emergency room. What in the world was wrong with my parents? Well, now we could chuckle at stuff like that, and some of you can relate because you probably had similar things in your own life and story. But the thing is that we were part of a world that was relatively safe. It was a carefree place to play in our neighborhoods and sandlots and the parks and the streets, even all over town. Nobody gave any thought to it. But today, parents live in constant fear of a variety of dangers to their children, not only in their neighborhoods, but also in their schools and even in their churches. Societal paranoia is the new norm. And can you blame them? I mean, think about this. Since 1960, we've had 176, and I think I have this on the screen somewhere, but I'm not in the presentation mode here.
There you go. Try.
All right. You choose whether you use that story or not. All right, 176% population increase with a 434% increase in violent crime. Now, this is since 1960. The availability and use of drugs and alcohol is beyond anything that any of us possibly could have imagined during this period of time. Child molestation is everywhere and plagues people constantly in fear. There's anxiety in our neighborhood schools, church, even our athletic programs. 9/11 basically changed everything. Security changed. How we do a lot of things changed. Global terrorism, national security dominate the news. And the fears of infectious diseases, flu, Ebola, HIV, measles, they all create this community anxiety. Is it any wonder that we are paranoid and afraid of taking any risk? After all, risk seems like an unwelcome reality in life. And it says we've adopted this new idol, safety, security. But as we know, it is a futile pursuit. The second, just thought I'd throw that in for a little chuckle, swine flu. This is what happens if you get swine flu. The second piece of this world that we are living in is it's a digital world. So what does this mean? Well, first of all, it means that we got to try to untangle this whole technology thing. I think this little kid has it right. No, Grandma, listen, double-click the Internet Explorer icon. Even toddlers understand how to use computers and even iPhones and iPads that sometimes we struggle with as adults. It is definitely a world that our children and grandchildren are growing up in almost as second nature. But how do we untangle it? Well, first of all, we need to understand some basic things about technology. Neil Postman years ago wrote a book, Death by Amusement, and I think he had some really good stuff in there where he talks about technology and media bias that's contributed to an age of silliness and thoughtlessness. And while we don't have time to dig into those kinds of subjects right now, I'd encourage you to read some of the chapters from his book and from my book, Courageous Grandparenting, to check out some of the resources related to this death by amusement and technology stuff. But for now, let me at least make this observation. We need to understand that muse means to think. If you put "ah" in front of it, that negates that not, which means amuse means to not think. It is a word that we use for those things that we do thoughtlessly and sometimes just for fun and pleasure. And not that there's anything wrong with it, but we become consumed by it in this culture in which we live today. This is not just an issue, by the way, for the younger generations. We are culture consumed with this stuff via media and other diversions, entertainment. All you have to do is go to Branson, where I was at recently, and other places around the country, and you can see how much we are consumed as older adults, not just young people, with this entertainment and diversion stuff. Technology and media especially really have become amusements that sedate us into this hypnotic state. And so what's happened is that we have created a deficiency in our ability to focus attention long enough to think critically or to even experience wonder and awe. Part of that has to do with this virtual reality. Listen to and watch this video.
Did you know the average person spends 4 years of his life looking down at his cell phone? Kind of ironic, ain't it? How these touch screens can make us lose touch. But it's no wonder in a world filled with iMacs, iPads, and iPhones, so many eyes, so many selfies, not enough us's and we's. See, technology has made us more selfish and separate than ever. Because while it claims to connect us, connection has gotten no better. And let me express first, Mr. Zuckerberg, not to be rude, but you should reclassify Facebook to what it is, an anti-social network. Because while we may have big friend lists, so many of us are friendless all alone, because friendships are more broken than the screens on our very phones. We sit at home on our computers measuring self-worth by numbers of followers and likes. Ignoring those who actually love us, it seems we'd rather write an angry post and talk to someone who might actually hug us. Am I bugging? You tell me, because I asked a friend the other day, let's meet up face to face. They said, all right, what time you want to Skype? I responded with OMG, SRS, and then a bunch of SMHs and realized, what about me? Do I not have the patience to have conversation without abbreviation? This is the generation of media overstimulation. Chats have been reduced to snaps. The news is 140 characters. Videos are 6 seconds at high speed. And you wonder why ADD is on the rise faster than 4G LTE. But get a load of this. Studies show the attention span of the average adult today is 1 second lower than that of a goldfish. So if you're one of the few people or aquatic animals that have yet to click off or close this video, congratulations. Let me finish by saying you do have a choice, yes. But this one, my friends, we cannot autocorrect. We must do it ourselves. Take control or be controlled, make a decision. Me? No longer do I want to spoil a precious moment by recording it with a phone. I'm just gonna keep them. I don't want to take a picture of all my meals anymore. I'm just gonna eat them. I don't want the new app, the new software, or the new update. And if I want to post an old photo, who says I have to wait until Thursday? I'm so tired of performing in the pageantry of vanity and conforming to this accepted form of digital insanity. Call me crazy, but I imagine a world where we smile when we have low batteries. Because that'll mean we'll be one bar closer to humanity.
So you see, as Prince EA was trying to say, we are really growing up in a world where we live and define friendships by likes and Facebook friends. And that's the world of grandkids are living in. In fact, it said that 53% of millennials said they would rather lose their sense of taste and smell than lose access to their smartphones. That is sad. They would rather Instagram about They're orange crepes with whipped cream and chocolate sauce that actually taste it and experience it themselves. That's the technological world, this virtual, what I call unreality. Technology and all the latest gadgets are controlling us, or at least our grandkids' generation, but they can control us easy. It's slavery. And while Prince EA challenges his generation to put down those devices and engage with others in the world, the fact is that most of them find themselves unable to do it. They can't seem to figure out how to make it happen because they're so addicted. The second part of that is the boredom syndrome. They can never get enough. And when it's taken away, they don't know what to do with themselves. Boredom springs from this loss of contentment and the ability to be still, quietude, to be at peace. That's not a part of who we are as a generation anymore. We've become used to noise and distractions, and we've lost the sense of wonder, awe, and even imagination. A Kaiser Foundation study actually found that young people between 8 and 18 are tethered to media-related devices, the equivalent of more than 9 hours per day. Smartphones and iPads have become the alternative solution to boredom for kids and, unfortunately, many adults too, including grandparents. God created our brains to grow, develop, and be used to unpack the marvelous wonders He's made for our enjoyment and delight, and so that we may know Him intimately. But media-driven technologies made it very difficult to engage in spiritual disciplines and to cultivate character or to develop a meaningful relationship with our Creator. For example, a young person sitting in church the other day, in my church when I was at a worship service, was sitting there in front of me playing computer games like Sugar Crush instead of engaging with the worship and the message. And this teen's father was reading some book, and it wasn't the Bible, on his iPad. That's what's going on in our world. The other piece of that is that we live in a relativistic world. We need to understand that. I call this the idolatry of individualism. And what we're witnessing in this relativistic world is a shift of worldview in our nation and across the world, unlike any other in recent history. While a change in worldview has impacted many cultures throughout history, the global nature of this shift is without precedence. Let me have you watch this video just to give you a little bit idea of what we're dealing with here. There it is.
This is a red balloon. It's true, it's red. We all know our colors. The absolute truth is that this balloon is red.
No, it's not. That's green.
What?
This right here is a green balloon.
That is the prettiest yellow balloon. Yellow? This is red. Yeah, come over here.
No, it's green.
It's red! Yeah, I know. It's a red balloon.
Hey, will you look at it from my point of view, please? What? Hey, nice blue balloon.
It's green! Green? It's red.
Why are you saying it's red when it's blue, huh?
It's totally purple from here. Purple? Okay, you know what? Let's just settle this once and for all, okay?
Where are you going?
Hey, what color is this balloon?
I only see in black and white.
Hey, Mark, what color?
There is no balloon.
This is ridiculous.
Hey, I know what the problem is. Look, my mom taught me that this was blue. But, then she said this is red and green, yellow, and on and on.
Okay, I get that your mom taught you that was blue, but I mean, that's not the truth.
Whoa, why are you talking bad about his mom? Yeah.
I'm not.
Listen, I respect your mother. Thank you. And the way she raised you. She taught you that was blue. Our moms taught us that it was red. That's the way it goes.
I thought you said it was green.
It is green. See, I'm smart. I went to college. And in college, I learned all these different theories about color. Really? And my color professors who have doctorates in color. Do you have a doctorate in color?
No.
It shows. Okay? They can't even agree on one theory of color, so you have to look at all the different theories and pick which one works best for you. And green is great for me. That makes sense. Thank you.
No, you can't just pick whatever color fits your life the best. Red is red.
Okay, do you know the word intolerant?
Yeah.
Because that's what you're being right now. All right, you're shoving your opinion down my throat.
Okay, it's not my opinion, it's the truth.
Hold on. All we're saying is that we need to stop arguing about trivial things. Like truth.
You know, the funny thing about truth is, it's true, whether you believe it or not.
So we can laugh at stuff like that, but it's really sad and it's really true. Because what relativism is redefining truth. by the standards of the individual, not the good of the community or something higher than ourselves. And we get in a lot of trouble when that happens. For example, we find that morality is devalued. The devaluation of morality involves the idea there is no fixed moral law anymore. Morality is left to the whims of the individual. What my opinions, what my desires are. We've swapped the freedom of conscience for the freedom of choice. And so we've devalued morality and says, oh, it's really not that important. It's whatever you want it to be. The other thing that gets devalued is marriage and family. And we have this amazing war that's going on against the family today that's characterized by out-of-control divorce. In fact, G.K. Chesterton said this. He said, if words are worth fighting for, what on earth would be? If words are not worth fighting for, excuse me, if they are not worth fighting for, what on earth would be? And basically what he's saying is that we can take words like marriage or like family, and those are two words worth fighting for because they are essential pillars for any stable society. And if we want to just throw them out and say, it doesn't matter, believe whatever you want, then something is really lost when we do that. The leakage and water damage is far worse because of these two pillars that have been redefined by the politically correct viewpoint. The other piece of that has to do with redefining the meaning of marriage. That's what divorce essentially does. In other words, we've said, marriage is really what's in it for me, which is not what the biblical definition of marriage is all about. But that's what we've done. We've lost sight of the purpose of marriage, the goal of raising godly offspring, and instead we've developed new styles of defining marriage and family, cohabitation being one of them. This is actually redefined family to be any social arrangement that's convenient, but with no commitments. And unfortunately, our children are paying the price for this kind of thing. Cohabitation says, I'm in this relationship for, well, whatever feels good. So we've redefined family now without marriage. The other piece of that is same-sex marriage. Same-sex marriage has redefined marriage to mean nothing more than the affections of two people for each other. There is no larger meaning or purpose beyond what is desirable, convenient, and can provide some kind of legal benefit. So not only has marriage been redefined, but now family is being redefined by same-sex marriage. That's part of the world that our grandkids are growing up in and think is normal. But there's more to this truth redefined. It also redefines, the redefining of truth also devalues life. We've come to this place where, as Pope Francis once said, we have developed a throwaway culture. Did you know that only in China and North Korea are there more liberal policies than the US and Canada when it comes to abortion? Euthanasia is becoming a more common practice. Assisted suicide is becoming more acceptable. And rampant violence is just becoming the norm of life anymore. The other piece that's being devalued is community. The devaluation of community means that this generation, which has to do with the idea of multiple generations, has been replaced by my generation. It is my generation that is of importance. What's in it for me and my generation, rather than what is good for the common good of the community. The multi-generational versus intergenerational. We are really good about talking about multi-generational things, but we are not so good when it comes to connecting intergenerationally. Even in the church, for example, we have all the generations coming together in one place at the same time on a weekly basis at least. And yet we do very little to connect the generations once they come there. That's part of this devaluation of community process. It's always about what's in it for me. And then there's this other thing, the devaluation of faith. And what this is really about is faith has come to mean now whatever you want to believe. Tolerance, the new intolerance. So it's whatever you want to believe. As long as it fits whatever the politically correct, or what I would call it the politically corrupt view is. The church, for example, in Europe, Canada and America has fallen prey to the deceit and political correctness of this particular kind of shift of thinking. And the result is a gospel that is not the gospel of the scripture. Kyle Idleman is a pastor and author who wrote a book called Not a Fan. And he says that we have produced more fans of Jesus than followers. The question of whether we are truly followers of Jesus may be the most important question we must answer, because the question that Jesus said had to do with eternity. Here's what Kyle Idleman had to say, and he talks about this dumbed down gospel, fans versus followers. So here's what he has to say. He says this: I think Jesus has a lot of fans these days, fans who cheer for him when things are going well, but who walk away when it's a difficult season. Fans of Jesus who know all about him, but they don't know him. Jesus was never interested in having fans. When he defines that kind of relationship he wants, when he defines the kind of relationship he wants, enthusiastic admirer is not an option. He goes on to say, my concern is that many of our churches in America have gone from being sanctuaries to becoming stadiums. And every week, all the fans come to the stadium where they cheer for Jesus, but have no interest in following him. The biggest threat, he says, to the church today is fans who call themselves Christians, but aren't actually interested in following Christ. They want to be close enough to Jesus to get all the benefits, but not so close that it requires anything from them. That was Kyle Idleman. And if what Kyle Idleman says is true, then is it any wonder that our kids and grandkids really don't want anything to do with the Church of Christianity? I mean, why should they? What does it have to offer that's better than the world's offers? If the gospel is not the gospel, it's stripped of power. Fans are fickle and subject to the winds of culture wherever they blow. Fans don't make Christ look great. Followers do, because their lives prove that he is great. Which brings us to this final reality we need to face about the world in which we live. It is a hostile world, and by that I mean it is hostile to the truth. It's what I mentioned earlier. Tolerance has become the new intolerance. What does that mean? What does that look like? Well, we're going to take a few minutes, and if you were sitting at a seminar with us, you'd take 2 minutes and ask people to say what they think that really means. This is the question. Is it possible for tolerance and truth to coexist? Why or why not? And if you were to hit the brown piece of the triangle up there, it would start trickling down into the hourglass. Tom says he's going to try it and see if it works. There it goes. See, it's trickling down, and it'll trickle down until the 2 minutes is up. And you can use that. The other question is, how should believers respond to the world's hostility towards truth? So this is what you would do for a table talk session if we were doing it together. But we're going to move on. We ended it. Quick, 2 minutes. Dictatorship of relativism. What in the world is that? It is the right to use whatever power, let me put this up here, is at my disposal to ensure that no one tells me what to do or believe. Remember the red balloon video? That's the dictatorship of relativism. Remember, he was saying to the girl, well, it shows that you don't have a doctorate degree. Why are you being so intolerant? Why are you calling his mother a bad woman or whatever? Why are you making fun of his mother? There's this intimidation, this dictatorship that says, you can't tell me what to do, and I'm going to use whatever power is at my disposal to make sure you don't, and to intimidate you into silence. Christians have largely allowed this shift on our watch without challenging or engaging the world with the truth. We've been guilty of retreating from the tough questions and confronting lies without any careful thought and compassion. The two have to go together. Consequently, the mood has shifted from an acceptance and toleration of biblical values to outright hostility towards them, or at least indifference. So if you choose to be a follower of Christ and not just a fan, there will be consequences for that decision. You know, growing up, for most of us, we never thought about consequences much, other than maybe somebody teasing us once in a while. There might be a few poke fun of us, but by and large, it was acceptable. It was a world accommodating to the biblical Christian worldview. That's not the case now. But we shouldn't be surprised because Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble. But take heart, I will overcome the world. He said to his disciples, if they persecuted me, they will persecute you also. They will treat you this way because of my name. For they do not know the one who sent me. I have given them your word, and the world has hated them. For they are not of the world any more than I am of the world, as he's speaking about his disciples as he's praying to the Lord before Gethsemane. Now, do you understand the significance of these words for today, and especially for your grandchildren who must live in and navigate this hostile world, a world of intolerant truth? You see, all of this in the world we now live in, it feels wrong to most of us who are followers of Christ, because we know we're not of this world. We're sojourners, waiting for redemption, new heaven, new earth, for which we were made. Yet while we're here, we're called upon to be ambassadors and children of light, salt and light. We have been given the ministry of reconciliation, reconciling the broken and lost, those walking in the darkness, so that they might be reconciled to the Father, where they can walk in the truth, find freedom and the hope of a full redemption. So we must decide, which will we be, fan or follower of Jesus? Fan or follower, which will we be? And the question is, which are you? Remember, Jesus is not looking for fans, only followers. In Matthew 7, he said some pretty hard stuff. He said, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only he who does the will of my Father. Then I will plainly tell them, those who choose not to follow, I never knew you. No matter what you have done, I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers. Now that's some pretty hard stuff. But Jesus knew that fans don't get it. You see, we can't give what we don't have. And Jesus said, if you want to follow me, you have to deny yourself. You have to take up your cross daily and follow me. So here's the deal. If we want our grandchildren to walk in the truth, we must too. So, fan and follower, which are you? By the way, your grandchildren will figure this out pretty easily. Don't go through life thinking that you're a follower because you're a member of a church and you pay tithe. Jesus said that the one who would lose his or her life, that is, surrender it all to Christ, would find it. This is a good time to consider whether you have been living a lie or not. If you have, today is the day of salvation for the one who would repent and receive the gift of life that God in his mercy and grace offers to you. So I would say to you, I don't know why you came to this workshop or this seminar, but don't pass on to your children something that is not the real thing. There's just too much at stake for both of you. Now I know a bunch of you are probably thinking right now, wait a minute, this is getting pretty heavy and a little too personal. I thought this was going to be about how to enjoy my role as a grandparent. But let me remind you, we call this the Courageous Grandparenting Seminar, not the Feel-Good Grandparenting Seminar. So please understand something. I enjoy being a grandparent as much as anyone. And I have my share of heartache in that process as well. There are still plenty of fun and exciting things about being a grandparent. But understand, and I understand this firsthand because I have a prodigal grandson. We are in a battle for the hearts, minds, and souls of our grandchildren, and maybe our own souls. So let's not lose heart. Let's focus on not the bad, just the bad stuff in the world, but the fact that Jesus said, take heart. But we do need to be smart. We do need to understand what is going on. And more than that, we must also know what to do. And we'll get to that in the next session. So you would be pulling up then just the thing that says we're going to take a break at this point and take a little bit break before you come back to the next session. So I want to just invite you to write down any comments or questions that you have, points of clarification. Send them to me at cavinharp@gmail.com. I couldn't even remember my own email address, cavinharp@gmail.com. Do my best to answer. Some of you have my phone number. Give me a call. I'll be glad to talk to you about these things as well. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully next time Tom and I do this, we'll know better what we're doing and have the right tools to do it. All right? God bless. Good night.